Ji-won Park walked through the long metal hallways of Research Station Omega-7. Her footsteps echoed in the quiet corridors. She carried her data pad and scanner, doing her weekly check of the biological labs. As the only human scientist on the station, she often felt alone among the tall, gray-skinned Vextari researchers. The station floated in deep space, far from any planet. Ji-won had been working here for 8 months as part of a peace program between Earth and the Vextari Empire. She studied alien plants and animals, hoping to learn things that could help both species. Today felt different. Ji-won noticed that some areas of the station were marked as restricted. She had never seen these red signs before. Her curiosity grew, stronger with each step. The Vextari were usually open about their research. Why would they hide anything from her? She checked her schedule again. All the normal labs were clean and working well, but her scanner showed strange energy readings coming from a section she had never visited. The readings looked like life support systems, but much stronger than needed for plant samples. Ji-won followed the signals down a side corridor she had never noticed before. The walls here looked newer, and the air felt colder. Her breath made small clouds as she walked deeper into the restricted area. Security cameras watched her every move, but she kept going. At the end of the hallway, she found a heavy door with multiple locks. Her access card should not work here, but she tried it anyway. To her surprise, the door opened with a soft hiss. Someone had forgotten to remove her clearance from this area. Inside, Ji-won found a large room filled with observation chambers. Each chamber was made of clear material and had its own life support system. Soft blue lights glowed from inside each one. At first, she thought they contained alien specimens, but as she got closer, her heart nearly stopped. The chambers held children. Human children. 12. Young faces looked back at her through the clear walls. They wore simple gray clothes and had strange metal bands around their wrists and ankles. Most of them appeared to be sleeping, but a few were awake and staring at her with wide, frightened eyes. Ji-won rushed to the nearest chamber. Inside was a boy who looked about 12 years old. He had dark hair and was awake, watching her carefully. She pressed her hand against the clear wall, and he did the same from his side. "Can you hear me?" she whispered. The boy nodded and pointed to a small speaker near his chamber. Ji-won found the control panel and turned it on. "Please help us," the boy said in a weak voice. "My name is Hyunwoo Kim. We have been here for so long." Ji-won's hands shook as she looked at the other chambers. She saw children of different ages from about 6 years old to 14. Some had bandages on their arms and heads. Others had small scars that looked like they came from medical procedures. "How did you get here?" Ji-won asked Hyunwoo. "Our colony ship was traveling to New Seoul," he said. "The Vextari stopped us and said there was a problem with our engines. They separated all the children from our parents. They told us we would be safe, but then they brought us here." Ji-won felt sick. She knew about the colony ship that had disappeared 6 months ago. The official report said it had been destroyed in an accident. But here were the children, alive and imprisoned. She moved to another chamber, where a little girl with pigtails was awake. The girl looked about 8 years old and had tear marks on her cheeks. "What is your name, sweetheart?" Ji-won asked gently. "Mira Choi," the girl said. "Are you here to take us home?" Before Ji-won could answer, she heard footsteps in the hallway. She quickly turned off the speaker and hid behind one of the larger machines. 2 Vextari scientists entered the room, talking in their clicking language. Ji-won understood some of their words from her months on the station. They were discussing test results and talking about increasing the pain levels for tomorrow's experiments. Her blood turned cold as she realized what they were doing to these innocent children. The scientists checked some of the sleeping children and made notes on their data pads. One of them injected something into a chamber that held a sleeping boy. The child did not wake up, but his face showed pain even in his drugged sleep. After the scientists left, Ji-won came out of hiding. She ran back to Hyunwoo's chamber. "How long have they been doing tests on you?" she asked. "Every day," Hyunwoo said. "They take our blood, and they hurt us to see how much pain we can feel. They say humans are interesting because we are tougher than we look. Jiwon felt anger building inside her chest. She looked around the room and saw computers with data about each child. The files showed detailed records of medical experiments, pain tolerance tests, and brain scans. The Vextari were treating these children like laboratory animals. The smaller ones cry a lot, Hyunwoo continued. I try to help them stay brave, but it is hard when we are all scared. Jiwon noticed that despite being imprisoned and tortured, Hyunwoo seemed strong and determined. Even as a child, he was trying to protect the others. This gave her hope. I am going to get you all out of here, she promised. But I need time to make a plan. Can you wait a little longer? Hyunwoo nodded. We have waited this long. The others will be happy to know that someone cares about us. Jiwon spent a few more minutes talking to the awake children and learning their names. Besides Hyunwoo and Mira, she met Taehyun Lee, a 10-year-old boy who seemed very smart, and So-young Nam, a 7-year-old girl who remembered everything the scientists had done to them. As she prepared to leave, Jiwon made copies of some of the research files onto her datapad. She needed evidence of what the Vextari were doing, but as she worked, alarms suddenly started ringing throughout the station. Red lights flashed, and a voice announced that all personnel should report to their stations immediately. Jiwon realized that someone had discovered her presence in the Mao restricted area. She had to leave now, but she promised the children she would return. Stay strong, she told them through the speaker. I will find a way to save you all. As she ran through the corridors back to her own lab, Jiwon's mind raced with plans. She could not contact Earth directly because all communications went through Vextari systems. But she had to do something. These children had already suffered too much. She thought about Hyunwoo's brave face and Mira's hopeful eyes. Somewhere in space, their parents probably thought they were dead. But they were alive, and they needed her help. Jiwon reached her lab just as security teams began searching the station. She sat at her desk and pretended to work on her normal research. But inside, she was planning the most important mission of her life. She would save these children, no matter what it cost her. 2 days passed before Jiwon could return to the hidden laboratory. She waited until the night shift when fewer Vextari were awake. Their species slept differently than humans, giving her a small window of opportunity. This time, she came prepared. She brought medical supplies, water pouches, and a small device that could block security cameras for short periods. Her heart pounded as she made her way through the dark corridors. The children were exactly as she had left them, trapped in their clear prisons. But now she noticed things she had missed before. Scratch marks on the walls of some chambers showed where the children had tried to escape. Small drawings were etched into the metal floors, probably made with fingernails or pieces of food. Jiwon went straight to Hyunwoo's chamber and activated the speaker system. I came back, just like I promised, she said softly. Hyunwoo's eyes lit up. Even though he was just 12 years old, his face showed wisdom beyond his years. Did you find a way to help us? I am working on it, Jiwon said. But first I need to wake up the others. The drugs they give you are dangerous if they use them too long. She studied the control panels for each chamber. The Vextari systems were complex, but she had learned much about their technology during her months on the station. Slowly and carefully, she began reducing the sedative levels for the sleeping children. One by one, the children began to wake up. They were confused and scared at first, but Hyunwoo spoke to them in Korean, calming them down. Jiwon watched as the older boy took care of the younger ones even though he was trapped just like them. A 14-year-old boy named Jae-hoon Ko woke up angry and started hitting the walls of his chamber. Let us out, he shouted. We did nothing wrong. Jae-hoon, be quiet, Hyunwoo said firmly. This woman is trying to help us. We cannot let the gray ones hear us. Jiwon was amazed at how the children organized themselves. Even in this terrible situation, they had created their own small society. The older ones protected the younger ones, and everyone had a role to play. Little Mira Choi was fully awake now and told Jiwon about the daily routine. They bring us gray food in the morning. Then they take some of us to the pain room. In the afternoon, they put needles in our arms and take our blood. At night, they give us the sleepy medicine. A 10-year-old boy named Taehyun Lee surprised Jiwon with his detailed knowledge of the station. I have been watching the air vents, he said. The gray ones are too big to fit in them, but we could crawl through. I have been making a map in my head. Even 7-year-old Soyoung Nam had valuable information. I remember everything they do to us, she said. Every test, every medicine, every time they hurt us. Mama taught me to have a good memory, and I will tell everyone what happened here. As the hours passed, Jiwon learned more about what the children had endured. The Vexitari scientists had been testing human pain responses, trying to understand why humans could survive injuries that would kill other species. They tested the children's problem-solving abilities under stress. They even studied how human children bonded with each other in dangerous situations. They think we are just animals, said 9-year-old Yoonji Song, who had been pretending to sleep. But they do not understand that we are stronger when we work together. The youngest child, 6-year-old Min Seok Yoon, had been awake but staying very quiet. When Jiwon spoke to him, his response shocked her. I have been practicing being brave, he said in his small voice. Hyunwoo taught me that even little kids can be heroes if they try hard enough. Jiwon felt tears in her eyes. These children had been stolen from their families, tortured by alien scientists and locked away from everything they knew. But instead of giving up, they had become stronger. They took care of each other and refused to let their spirits be broken. We need to get you out of here, Jiwon said. But it will be dangerous. The Vextari will try to stop us. We are not afraid, Hyunwoo said, and the other children nodded in agreement. We have been planning our own escape, but we needed help from someone on the outside. Taehyun began explaining his map of the air vents. The main vent leads to the communication center. If we could get there, we could send a message to Earth. But first we need to get out of these boxes, Jaehoon said, testing the strength of his chamber walls. Jiwon studied the locking mechanisms. They were electronic and tied to the main computer system. I think I can override the locks, but once. I do. Alarms will sound immediately. We will have maybe 10 minutes before security arrives. 10 minutes is enough, Yoonji said confidently. We have been ready for months. As they planned, Jiwon marveled at the children's resilience. They had turned their imprisonment into a learning experience. They knew the guard schedules, the layout of nearby sections, and even which Vextari scientists were kind versus cruel. There is something else, Soyoung said quietly. I heard the gray ones talking yesterday. They said they might have to dispose of the specimens soon because someone has been asking questions about the missing ship. Fear shot through Jiwon's heart. The children were in immediate danger. She could not wait any longer to put a rescue plan into action. Tonight, she decided. We do this tonight, during the next shift change. The children agreed without hesitation. They had been waiting for this chance for months. Even the youngest ones understood that this might be their only opportunity to escape. As Jiwon prepared to leave and gather more supplies, Hyunwoo called out to her. Miss Jiwon, he said, thank you for not giving up on us. Our parents always told us that humans take care of each other, no matter what. And they were right, Jiwon replied. No one hurts human children and gets away with it. The Vextari have no idea what they have started. She looked at each brave young face one more time. Tomorrow, these 12 children would either be free or they would all be dead together. But either way, they would face their fate as humans, united, determined, and unbroken. The gray aliens thought they were studying weak specimens. They had no idea they had captured the future heroes of humanity. The next evening, Jiwon returned to the hidden laboratory with her heart racing. She carried a bag filled with tools, emergency food, and a portable communication device she had stolen from the main lab. The children were all awake and waiting for her. Are you ready? She asked through the speaker system. 12 young voices answered as one. Yes. Jiwon began working on the first chamber lock. The electronic systems were more complex than she had expected, but her months of studying Vexitari technology helped her understand the coding. Sweat dripped from her forehead as she carefully disconnected the security protocols. The first lock clicked open. Hyunwoo's chamber door slid aside with a soft hiss. The 12-year-old boy stepped out slowly, his legs weak from months of confinement. But his eyes burned with determination. "It feels good to stand without walls around me," he said. Jiwon moved quickly to free the others. Each time a chamber opened, another child stepped into freedom. They were thin and pale, but their spirits were strong. The younger ones stayed close to the older ones just as they had planned. Jae-hoon Ko stretched his arms above his head and flexed his muscles. "I am ready to fight if we have to," he declared. "Let us hope it does not come to that," Jiwon said, though she knew fighting was likely. She opened the last chamber and helped little Min Seok-yoon step out. Even at 6 years old, he walked with confidence. Taehyun Lee immediately went to a wall panel and began studying the ventilation grate. "Just as I thought," he said. "The screws are loose. The gray ones never check these things properly." While Taehyun worked on opening the vent, the other children organized themselves. Yoonji-song had somehow created small tools from pieces of their food trays. So-young-nam quietly recited the guard schedule she had memorized. The children moved like a well-trained team. "Before we go," Jiwon said, "I need to download more evidence from their computers. The galaxy needs to know what happened here." She connected her portable device to the Vextari research systems. Files began copying automatically. Medical records, experiment videos, and communication logs that proved the children had been kidnapped. Suddenly, alarms began blaring throughout the station. Red lights flashed and the sound of running footsteps echoed in the corridors outside. "They know we are gone," Hyunwoo said calmly. "Taehyun, is the vent ready?" "Almost," Taehyun replied, working faster on the screws. 30 more seconds. Through the laboratory's main door, they could hear Vexitari voices getting closer. The alien scientists were angry and confused. They had never expected their specimens to escape. The ventilation grate finally opened. Taehyun crawled inside first, followed by the other children in order of size. Jiwon went last, sealing the grate behind them just as the laboratory door burst open. The air ducts were dark and narrow, but Taehyun led them confidently through the maze of metal tunnels. His mental map proved to be perfect. Behind them, they could hear the Vextari searching the laboratory and shouting orders. "The communication center is 2 levels up," Taehyun whispered as they crawled. "But we have to go through the main corridor to reach the final vent." As they climbed through vertical shafts, Jiwon was amazed by the children's physical abilities. Months of imprisonment should have made them weak, but their human genetics gave them strength and endurance that surprised even her. Little Mira Choi kept up with the older children without complaining. Min Seok-yoon climbed the metal ladders like a natural athlete. Even after everything they had suffered, these children refused to give up. They reached the communication level just as security teams flooded the laboratory area below. Through small vents, they could see Vexitari soldiers running through the corridors with energy weapons. "There," Taehyun pointed to a vent cover that looked down into the communication center. "But there are 2 gray ones working at the computers." Jiwon studied the situation. The communication center had multiple computer terminals and a large transmitter array. If she could reach the main console, she could send a distress signal to Earth. But the 2 Vextari technicians would spot them immediately. "We need a distraction," she whispered. "I have an idea," Yoonji-song said with a small smile. "Give me 2 minutes, then open the vent." Before anyone could stop her, Yoonji crawled away through a side tunnel. The others waited in tense silence, wondering what the 9-year-old girl was planning. Suddenly, explosions echoed from the laboratory section. Emergency alarms added to the chaos already filling the station. Through the vents, they saw the 2 technicians receive urgent calls on their communication devices. "Engineering emergency," one of them said in the clicking Vexitari language. "All personnel report to Section 7 immediately." The technicians ran out of the communication center, leaving it empty. Moments later, Yoonji returned through the vents, looking pleased with herself. How did you do that? Jiwon asked in amazement. I found the power junction for their laboratory equipment, Yoonji explained. A few disconnected wires can cause very pretty sparks. The children dropped down into the communication center one by one. Jiwon rushed to the main console and began setting up her transmission equipment. Her fingers flew over the controls as she tried to establish a connection to Earth. While she worked, the children stood guard at the entrances. Hyunwoo and Jae-hoon positioned themselves at the main door. The younger children watched the side corridors. Even in this moment of hope, they remained alert and ready. Almost there, Jiwon muttered as the transmission systems came online. I just need a few more seconds to boost the signal strength. That was when they heard the heavy footsteps of security teams approaching their location. The Vextari had figured out where they were going. Contact established, Jiwon announced as her equipment connected to a human communication relay. I'm sending our location and all the evidence files. The door to the communication center began to glow red as the Vextari tried to cut through it with energy tools. The metal was thick, but it would not hold them for long. Message sent, Jiwon said. Now we need to find another way out of here. No, Hyunwoo said firmly. Now we fight. The other children nodded in agreement. They had been victims long enough. It was time to show the galaxy what human children could do when they decided to be heroes. As the door finally burst open and Vextari soldiers poured into the room, 12 young humans and one determined scientist prepared to make their stand. They were outnumbered and outgunned, but they had something the aliens could never understand: the unbreakable human spirit. 6 Vextari soldiers stormed into the communication center with energy weapons raised. Their gray faces showed anger and confusion. They had never expected their test subjects to escape, let alone fight back. Surrender immediately, the lead soldier commanded in broken human language. Return to containment chambers. Hyunwoo Kim stepped forward, shielding the younger children behind him. At 12 years old, he looked tiny compared to the tall alien soldiers, but his voice was steady and strong. No, he said simply. We are not your prisoners anymore. The Vextari soldiers looked at each other uncertainly. Their training had not prepared them for defiant human children. They had been told humans were weak and easily controlled. Jae-hoon Ko moved to stand beside Hyunwoo. Despite being only 14, months of anger had built up inside him like a volcano ready to explode. You hurt us, he said, his hands clenched into fists. You hurt children. Now you will pay for that. The lead soldier raised his weapon but hesitated. These were not the broken, frightened specimens he had expected to find. These children stood together like young warriors, unafraid and united. Jiwon tried to step between the children and the soldiers. Please, she said. They are just kids, let me handle this. But Tae-hyun Lee had other ideas. The 10-year-old boy had noticed something the adults missed. The communication center's emergency systems were still active from Yoonji's earlier sabotage. All the station's automated defenses were in chaos mode. Yoonji, he whispered. Can you reach that control panel behind the gray ones? 9-year-old Yoonji Song nodded and began moving quietly along the wall. Her small size let her stay hidden behind the computer terminals. The Vexitari soldiers were focused on the older children and did not notice her. Meanwhile, 7-year-old So-young Nam did something that surprised everyone. She started reciting everything she remembered about her imprisonment, speaking loudly in perfect Korean. Day 1, they took blood samples from my left arm, she announced. Day 3, they tested pain responses on my fingers. Day 7, they scanned my brain while I was awake. The soldiers tried to make her stop, but So-young continued her testimony. Her voice carried through the station's communication system, which was still broadcasting to space. Somewhere out there, human ships might be listening. Day 15, they made Minseo cry for 2 hours to study human emotional responses. Day 23, they cut a piece of skin from Jae-hoon's shoulder to analyze healing factors. The lead soldier moved toward So-young to silence her, but that was exactly what the children had been waiting for. As soon as the aliens focused on one child, the others acted. Yoonji reached the control panel and began pressing buttons. She could not read the Vextari symbols, but she understood that red buttons usually meant emergency or danger. She pressed every red button she could find. Instantly, the communication center's blast doors began to close. Emergency lights bathed everything in flashing red. The ventilation systems activated at maximum power, creating a howling wind that made it hard to see. In the confusion, Hyunwoo grabbed a loose piece of metal from a damaged console. It was not much of a weapon, but it was something. Jaehoon found a heavy tool that the Vextari technicians had left behind. The younger children did not have weapons, but they had something more powerful: their voices. All of them began shouting, at once creating a wall of sound that echoed through the metal corridors. "We are the children of the colony ship New Seoul," Mira Choi yelled. "We are not animals, we are humans." 6-year-old Min Seok-yoon surprised everyone by climbing onto a computer console and continuing So-young's testimony. "They hurt us every day," he shouted, "but we never gave up. We never stopped being brave." The Vextari soldiers tried to restore order, but everything was going wrong at once. The blast doors would not open. The communication systems were broadcasting the children's voices across space. Emergency alarms were calling security teams from all over the station. That was when something wonderful and terrible happened. Captain Dong-hae Shin of the Human Defense Force ship Seoul's Pride had been secretly following the trail of the missing colony ship for months. His vessel had been hiding in the asteroid field near the station, listening for any sign of survivors. When Ji-won's emergency transmission reached his ship, followed by the children's voices broadcasting their testimony, Captain Shin's reaction was immediate and overwhelming. "Battle stations," he ordered his crew. "All weapons online. Prepare for combat." Lieutenant Nayeon Cha looked at her captain with concern. "Sir, that station has diplomatic immunity. If we attack, it could start a war." Captain Shin's face was like stone. "Lieutenant, they have been torturing human children for months. There will be no diplomacy today." Back on the station, the situation was getting worse for the Vextari. More security teams had arrived, but the children refused to surrender. They had turned the communication center into a fortress, using the emergency systems to keep the soldiers confused and disorganized. Ji-won found herself amazed by the children's tactical abilities. Without any military training, they had instinctively created defensive positions and coordinated their actions. Hyunwoo gave orders like a young general. The others followed his commands without question. "Tae-hyun, watch the side door," Hyunwoo called out. "Yoonji, keep hitting those emergency buttons. Everyone else stay low and keep making noise." The Vextari station commander, General Thexvar, finally arrived with reinforcements. He looked at the chaos in the communication center and made a decision that would change galactic history forever. "Terminate the specimens," he ordered coldly. "They have become too dangerous to study. Kill them all and destroy the evidence." But, as his soldiers raised their weapons to fire on the children, the entire station shook with the impact of human military weapons. Captain Shin's ship had arrived, and he was not interested in negotiation. Through the communication center's windows, they could see the sleek black shape of the Seoul's Pride approaching the station. Its weapon systems were fully charged and ready for war. "This is Captain Dong-hae Shin of the Human Defense Force," his voice boomed through the station's speakers. "You have exactly 60 seconds to release the human children unharmed. After that, I will demonstrate why harming human children is the worst mistake any species can make." General Thexvar realized too late that he had crossed a line no alien should ever cross. He had hurt human children, and now he would face the consequences. The reckoning had begun. The 60 seconds passed in deadly silence. General Thexvar stared at the human warship through the communication center's windows, knowing that his next decision would determine the fate of everyone on the station. Captain Dong-hae Shin's voice came through the speakers again, but this time it was colder than the vacuum of space. "Time is up, General. I can see the children through your windows. They appear to be in distress. You have made a very serious mistake." The first human weapon struck the station's outer defenses like the fist of an angry god. The entire structure shook, and emergency systems screamed warnings throughout the corridors. But Captain Shin was careful. His weapons targeted only military systems, avoiding any areas where the children might be harmed. In the communication center, the 12 young humans watched in amazement as rescue finally arrived. Hyun-woo Kim felt tears running down his face, but he wiped them away quickly. Even in this moment of hope, he had to stay strong for the others. "Is that really a human ship?" little Mira Choi asked, pressing her face against the window. "Yes," Jiwon Park said, her own voice breaking with emotion. "Captain Shin heard your message. The whole galaxy heard your message." Through the static-filled communication system, they could hear other voices joining the broadcast. Human ships throughout the sector were responding to the children's testimony. Word was spreading across space faster than light itself. General Thexvar tried to contact his fleet commanders, but found that human vessels had surrounded the entire star system. Somehow, in the few hours since the escape began, the Human Defense Force had mobilized a massive rescue operation. "How is this possible?" he demanded of his communications officer. "How did they organize so quickly?" The officer's gray face was pale with fear. "Sir, they are saying that harming human children triggers something called Code Omega. Every human ship in the galaxy is ordered to respond immediately." On the human ship, Captain Shin was coordinating with the children through the emergency communication link. His tactical team had studied the station's layout and found the safest way to extract the prisoners. "Hyun-woo," the captain said gently, "you have done an incredible job protecting everyone. But now I need you to get all the children to the center of the room and away from the windows." The 12-year-old boy gathered his friends around him. One more time. Even after months of torture and imprisonment, his first thought was still their safety. "We are going home," he told them, "but stay close to me until we are on the human ship." Lieutenant Nayeon Cha had prepared a special boarding party of the ship's medical and counseling teams. She knew these children would need careful treatment after their terrible experience. "Captain," she reported, "we have confirmation that these are definitely the children from the colony ship New Seoul. Their families have been told they are alive." Captain Shin nodded grimly. "Good. And what about the Vextari responsible for this?" "Our legal team is preparing war crimes charges. This kind of treatment of prisoners, especially children, violates every galactic treaty. The rescue operation began with surgical precision. Human soldiers cut through the station's hull and entered the communication center through the ventilation system that the children knew so well. Taehyun Lee actually helped guide them to the right location. When the first human soldier appeared through the air vent, 6-year-old Min Seok Yoon started crying, not from fear, but from pure relief. For months, he had dreamed of seeing another human face that was not trapped behind a clear wall. "It is okay now," the soldier said softly, kneeling down to Min Seok's level. "You are all safe. No one will ever hurt you again." One by one, the children were lifted up through the ventilation shaft to safety. As they reached the human ship, medical teams checked their health while counselors began the slow process of helping them recover from their trauma. But the children surprised everyone again. Despite everything they had endured, they were not broken. Instead, they had become stronger and more determined than ever. So Young-nam immediately asked for a computer so she could write down everything she remembered about the experiments. "People need to know exactly what happened," she said, "so it never happens to other children." Yoon-ji-song wanted to study the Vextari computer systems she had sabotaged. "I want to learn how their technology works," she explained. "Maybe I can use it to help other people someday." Jae-hoon Ko asked to speak with the ship's security officers. "I want to help hunt down the other gray ones who hurt children," he said with fierce determination. Even little Mira Choi had plans. "When we get home, I want to tell everyone that humans are brave. Even small humans can be heroes if they stick together." Captain Shin met with all 12 children in the ship's main conference room. He had expected to find traumatized victims who needed years of healing. Instead, he found young heroes who had turned their suffering into strength. "What you did was incredible," he told them. "You survived something that would have broken most adults. You protected each other and you never gave up hope. The entire galaxy is going to hear your story." Hyun-woo Kim stood up to speak for all of them. "Captain, we want everyone to know that the gray ones made a big mistake. They thought we were weak because we are young, but they did not understand that humans are strongest when we fight for each other. Within days, the story of the 12 children spread throughout known space. Video recordings of their testimony, extracted from the station's computers, became evidence in the largest war crimes trial in galactic history. The Vextari Empire, faced with overwhelming proof of their crimes and the fury of humanity, offered unprecedented reparations. They agreed to dismantle their entire research program and submit to human oversight of all future scientific projects. But the real change was in how other species viewed humanity. Before the incident, humans had been seen as newcomers to galactic civilization, interesting but not particularly dangerous. After the rescue of the 12 children, that perception changed forever. Species across the galaxy learned a new rule: never harm human children. The consequences were swift, overwhelming, and permanent. The children themselves became symbols of human resilience. When they returned to Earth, they were greeted as heroes. But more importantly, they were reunited with families who had never stopped believing they were alive. Yunwoo Kim grew up to become a diplomat, working to prevent other species from making the same mistake as the Vextari. Mira Choi became a teacher, helping other children learn to be brave in difficult situations. All 12 of them carried the same message throughout their lives. Humans are strongest when they protect each other, especially the young and vulnerable. And any alien species foolish enough to test that principle would discover why humanity had earned its place among the stars. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Human children were not specimens to be studied. They were the future of a species that would never stop fighting for each other, no matter the odds. And in the deep archives of human military history, the rescue of the 12 children became known as the moment when the galaxy truly understood what it meant to be human.